Hello, welcome to My Opinion Archive. In today's video, we're going to discuss the Sly Cooper universe and what I think about it. The first thing I would like to point out in these games that I like is the story. I am a big fan of the Sly Cooper video games, and I played them a lot when I was younger. But as I have grown older, I have started to realize that the story in the Sly Cooper games are actually more adult than I thought of them as. Because if you boil the story down, it could actually, in my opinion, be a very good plot for a much more adult-like movie. Like, we follow Sly from his very early days as an orphan. We quickly get established that his parents were actually murdered and killed, and he has been growing up on this orphanage with his very best friends and had to, become a criminal in the context of the games because that was his family lineage, their traditions, and to get back what this group of evil people took from him, his family legacy, so to speak. One of the other adult things in the games is the romance between Sly and Carmelisa Fox. I could easily see these elements of the story very easily being a part of a adult movie if you just boil it down to the simple parts of the story. The overall story is actually not as childish as you would think, and I've really come to appreciate that this is actually a very serious story told in a way that you can present it to younger audiences. It of course has this quite simple structure, it being a game that is for younger audiences. Like, you have the Clockwork, the big baddie, the big evil, with not much development or character to him. But for the intended audience, that really works very well, because it makes this very scary figure you have to defeat, this great evil. And the first game had this very simple element of the bad guys, once defeated, start telling you about their plan and who the next person you should go defeat is, which is of course a very simple way of moving the plot forward, but I think it's a very good one for the intended audience, and I still think the games are very good because it has a moral inside the story, and that moral is that all of the villains get imprisoned in the end by Carmelisa, not Sly, but I really like this aspect to it, that you don't defeat these evil guys by killing them or something like that. They actually get imprisoned and thrown to jail and justice gets served in a way that I really like in these games, that despite you being a thief and a not very moral character, the game still presents this morally right picture that these guys are also thieves and other sorts of criminals, and they get imprisoned. They don't get killed, you don't take justice into your own hands. And I also like the fact that Sly, he steals only from other criminals. That's a very interesting way of presenting him as a thief, his entire family. That they have this rule that you don't steal from just everyone, you steal from other criminals. One thing I also really like about these games is that every single villain has a background story, a motivation for what they do, so you get an idea about who they are, why they do as they do, why did they become criminals, so you can get an idea of why do people become criminals. I think it's a very good thing to teach the intended audience for these games, which are younger people, that there's a reason behind everything, and there's a reason behind why people become criminals. they all have a background story. They all have their motivations. Now, of course, the Sly Cooper games present this story in a very light-hearted way with a lot of humor. Some examples that come to mind are in Sly Cooper 2, where Bentley simply has to overcome this fear he has of driving the Sly Cooper van, because both Murray and Sly has been kidnapped or been arrested. So he has to do this very simple and, one would say, very normal thing by himself, and he has to overcome this. And they make a lot of fun about it because he's really scared about having to do this very simple task. It's done in a very funny way. Another example is when Sly meets the pirates in Sly Cooper 3. He makes these jokes about pirates not being able to become very old due to scurvy. I think I found it as a very funny joke when I was a child. And one of the things I always looked forward to in Sly Cooper games were when they made these big plans about how they were going to accomplish this last mission and steal this and defeat the boss, and the plans never went as they were supposed to. I really found that funny. One I remember to this day is when General Sao, I think it's pronounced, he simply stole Bentley's computer, and through that he just knew their plan. I really always found that funny as a kid to see how they made these great plans, and although the plan never went as intended, it always turned out in the end and always somewhat worked, but I always wondered what's going to go wrong this time. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the world, the games, and what I like about that. And by the way, I am aware that I didn't put a spoiler warning in this video. I'm probably going to put it in the title of the video, but I didn't think it was necessary because the games are, quite old. Even the newest game is, a bit old now, and I think a lot of people have played it. But I am going to put a spoiler warning in the title of this video, just to be sure. The world of Sly Cooper. I really liked the world of Sly Cooper because you get to visit many different places in the world. And in the new game, you get to visit many different time periods. Although the representation of these places on Earth are a very simplified version, I really liked it because it's very simple. It doesn't, of course, do a very accurate representation, but as a kid, it's very simple to see this and be like, oh, that's France, or oh, that's Venice, or oh, that's India. If you don't know the places, you very quickly get some idea about what this place is about, even if it isn't entirely accurate. Some other places you visit besides the one I already mentioned is Canada, or China, or Australia. And I really liked that they took this approach to showing different countries and different places in the world, and of course in the newer game different time periods. I also liked that they decided to put different animals that are, as far as my knowledge go, appropriate or sort of appropriate to the areas that you are in, so you get an idea about what sort of animals live in this part of the world. I really think it's a good way to teach kids or young adults or whoever plays this game that, okay, this place in the world looks sort of like this, and there's sort of these animals there, although the representations as stated aren't entirely accurate, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the animals were a little bit out of place. Now I'm just quickly going to mention some game mechanics I like in these games. I like the very many different powers you get for the different characters, like Sly Cooper's slow down time power, and Bentley's sleeping darts, and Murray's energy ball form. I really liked, there's of course many other interesting powers, but I like those powers. It makes very interesting gameplay opportunities to mix and match some of these powers. even though I'm well aware there's games that do a lot deeper game mechanics, but I like them. I also like that the games had some very unique boss battles, that a lot of the boss battles had this different feeling to them. You had different things you had to look out for and overcome. Some that spring to mind are, and I believe it's pronounced Octavio, the opera singing lion from Sly Cooper 3, where you had to fight him in these big piles of oil. Another one I also really liked is from Sly Cooper 3, the Contessa, the spider lady who was a warden for a prison. She could use her hypnotic powers to confuse you. And then there's one from Sly Cooper 1, Miss Ruby, I believe it's pronounced. I liked her boss battle because it had this section, although it's a very simple section, but it's a very memorable one for me, where you had to avoid her magical voodoo powers by pressing the corresponding button. It made all the bosses feel different and unique, and I really liked that aspect of the games, that the bosses were something different and unique, and you had different memorable boss battles. Now I'm going to talk about the characters. I'm not going to go into every single character, but I am going to talk about some of the more interesting characters, or those I found most interesting, although I really like a lot of the characters. I really like the contrast that is in the Sly Cooper group between Bentley and Murray. Sly. Some of the reasons why I like Sly is his leadership skills. He's the leader of the group. He always looks out for the different members of the group, and he is very funny, makes a lot of jokes. I really like his relationship between, Carmelita and him, and his sense of right and wrong, that despite him being a thief, he still doesn't condone every single bad action that the other villains take. There's a lot of things he wants to stop, and things are going too far. Some of the reasons why I like Bentley is that he is the brains of the group. He makes all these plans, and he has this very scientific approach to, almost everything they face, even if it's weird black voodoo magic. He always have this, or ghosts, he always has this scientific view of things. And I really like Bentley for his willingness to help and stand up to all of these villains. And despite him not being very strong or having the skills that Sly and Murray has, I also really like Bentley as a character because he is a very strong character. He, despite being disabled and being forced to be in a wheelchair, he really endures through this traumatic event and invents a lot of gadgets to help himself. So it doesn't force him to stop his life, and he can still help the Sly Cooper group. I really like that aspect of his character, that he's a very strong character, and after he becomes disabled, he's still a very strong character. Despite him being disabled and being a wheelchair, he is it's the same person as he used to be. And he doesn't blame Murray for anything that happens, and he really still cares about his friend, and really wants him to not blame himself. I really like that aspect of Bentley's character. Now to Murray. I really also like Murray as a character. Of course, I have a very soft spot for many of these characters. They are a big part of my childhood. What I liked about Murray is his strength, his power. He's a very powerful character, and in fact, I mean literally powerful. He can lift a lot of things. He has this very love for destruction, which makes a lot of funny moments in the games. And he has this big willingness to fight for his friends. I remember when Bentley gets attacked by Octavio, then he sort of, despite having taken this vow to not be violent anymore, he decides to fight for Bentley. I really like that aspect of his character, that he supports his friends and willing to stand up and fight for them. I really also liked his change after Bentley got disabled, that he took this event so seriously that he blamed himself, and that he learned to move on and become a part of the Sly Cooper gang again and forgive himself. But I really think that makes for a great character arc, him denouncing violence and becoming this spiritual person and then turning back to what he once was, but still having this respect for the path he chose and his guru. And another aspect I found funny about him when I was a child was his love for food. He was just willing to do almost everything for food. That's not the most serious argument, but that's just the aspect of the character I like. Now we move away from the Sly Cooper gang and talk about some of the other characters. Well, the next one might be a part of the Cooper gang, depending on how you look at it. Next character I'm going to talk about is Inspector Carmelita Montoya Fox. I really liked her as a character. She is this very strong, independent female character. She is a part of the police force, and she is a very interesting ally or antagonist to Sly. I really like the relationship they have between the two of them. That they were clearly in love and clearly cared about one another, but they were on different sides of the law, so they had to stay clear of one another. I really admire Carmelita's devotion to justice, that he is willing to go to these lengths to try to capture Sly Cooper and all the other criminals, although she mainly just follows the Cooper gang and ends up arresting the other villains because Sly Cooper isn't there. But I liked her devotion to her job, that she was willing to go to these lengths to see justice get served. I also liked her willingness to help Sly, that despite them being on different sides of the law, she acknowledges that there sometimes is a bigger picture and she has to help the gang so that a bigger threat, a greater evil can be stopped. And another aspect I liked about her was her weapon. Her stun gun, electric gun, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember the exact name, but I really found that a very funny weapon in the games, both when you played as her and just when you got hit by it as Sly. I'm going to keep my discussion of the rest of the characters a little shorter because this video is getting way longer than intended. Next character is Constable Nyla, or Nyla, however you want to pronounce it. I liked her as a character. I really think she is a great character. She's one of my favorite characters, and I'm not really 100% sure why, because there's lots of other more developed characters, but she's one that just sticks to my mind. But I liked her in Sly Cooper 2, her double-crossing, her willingness to help the Cooper gang and go against Carmelita, but she was only working for herself. She had her own different agenda, which was to become immortal, which I really liked about her. She was a double-crossing character. You never knew where really stood in the games, who she was with, until the end. And then there's Clockwork. I find him a alright villain. He's interesting enough. He has this background story of his hatred for the Cooper clan, to making him want to become a machine so he can attack and follow them for eternity. He really makes for a scary villain. When you are, for me, when I was younger, I really found him like this scary villain filled of hatred and who could live forever. But I realized that he is a very simple character. He's not that complex. He has a little bit of background story, but he's not a big part of the games. He's the last boss. But in the first one, of course, he is the great main last boss and the villain behind everything. But in the second one, he's, of course, a central part of it due to the parts of his body being used by the other villains. But he's not a very big part of it in the sense that he as a character is present. And in the third one, he is not very present at all. Same goes for the fourth one. Now I'm going to talk about a character that, of course, was a part of the Cooper gang, but I didn't really know where to put her in this context, so I'm going to talk about her as the last character. Penelope. I liked Penelope in Sly Cooper 3. I liked her relationship with Bentley. I liked her being this, basically more or less a female Bentley. She was smart, she was clever, she hadn't really many skills, physical skills, but she was very smart and had many inventions that could be useful to the Cooper gang. I liked her boss battle with the pirate captain. I'm probably going to say his name completely not wrong. The 3. I liked that despite her role as a Nazi genius in the Sly Cooper gang, she still had a boss battle. That she was instrumental in defeating this character. But one thing I didn't like about her was how her character was changed in Sly Cooper 4. I really didn't see it coming, and I really didn't think it fit her character to become a villain. I didn't like the way she suddenly left Bentley and became a villain who wanted to get rich and was willing to leave the gang and really join the bad guys. I really didn't see that coming. And I understand that it's a very good plot twist, but I just didn't think it fit the character. I also didn't like the way she changed her look. She really looks completely and utterly different from Sly Cooper 3, and that's just my personal taste, but I don't like it when you change characters that drastically. The looks should sort of stay consistent, if you ask me. In the end here, I'm just going to make some quick observations and some quick facts about the things I like in the Sly Cooper games. I think it has really great music, really iconic music, and I really like it. I would potentially play it for you in this video, but I do not want to get copy striked, so I'm just going to let you find it by yourself. I always found it very weird in the games how they mention the button you're supposed to press. Like Bentley starts mentioning press the X button, in my case because I played them on PlayStation. I always found that very weird as a kid. I was like, wait, why is Bentley saying the X button when they are just characters? I'm probably going to remember the games for that aspect for a very long time. That's all I have for this video. This video got a little bit longer than intended, but I hope you guys liked it. I hope you will consider subscribing to me. As always, this has been My Opinion Archive, and if you have anything to add about the Sly Cooper games, or anything to add in any of my videos about your personal opinions, then I would really like to hear them. I don't think I have ever said that in any of these videos, and that's an oversight on my part because I actually want to hear you guys' opinions.